Picture this. It's Friday morning, you open Spotify for New Music Friday, you hit play, and a question sneaks in before the chorus even drops. Who made this? A person with a pen and a pulse, or a machine with a dataset and a deadline?
And that question used to sound paranoid, right? Like, come on, it's obviously a real artist. But now AI-generated songs are everywhere, and some of them are pulling in huge streaming numbers.
So Spotify is stepping in with something new, a green checkmark that reads, Verified by Spotify. The idea is simple. When you see that badge, Spotify wants you to feel confident you're looking at an authentic, trusted artist account, not an AI-made persona or an account built around machine-generated music.
It's kind of like the platform saying, we're going to help you sort the real people from the synthetic ones. But, as always, the details matter. Because the badge isn't just handed out for existing.
Right. Spotify says artists have to clear certain benchmarks. They're looking for consistent listener activity and engagement over time, plus what they call an identifiable presence, both on the app and beyond it.
And that off-platform piece is interesting. It can mean connected social media profiles, upcoming live shows, even selling merchandise. In other words, signals that there's a real-world artist ecosystem behind the account.
There's also a specific listener threshold Spotify shared, at least 10,000 active listeners for 3 straight months. It's basically their way of saying, this isn't a one-week spike. This is sustained attention.
They also add a more subjective layer. They'll consider artists who've made meaningful contributions to music culture and history, and artists who are building momentum and relevance right now.
So it's both numbers and narrative. Data, plus cultural impact.
Which brings us to the big tension here. There's a lot of support for labeling, because fans and artists have been asking for some way to separate human-made work from AI-generated content.
Andrew Cash, the president and CEO of the Canadian Independent Music Association, basically said this kind of label was bound to happen. Like, the streaming world was always going to need a clearer signpost once AI music started flooding feeds.
But he also raised a concern that I think a lot of people will relate to. Do these requirements create a new hurdle for emerging and independent artists? Because if verification becomes a trust signal, and trust affects listening choices, then not having the check could quietly push smaller artists even further down the hill.
Exactly. Even if Spotify doesn't say, unverified equals fake, people might read it that way. The badge could become less of a helpful label and more of an unofficial ranking.
Now, if you scroll through Spotify today, plenty of huge names already have the green badge. Think Madonna, BTS, Bad Bunny. It's not surprising that major global acts are early in the queue.
On the Canadian side, there are verified artists too, including The Beaches, Cameron Whitcomb, and Jeremy Dutcher. So it's not only megapop acts, there's a mix.
But the rollout also looks a little messy, because some notable accounts still don't have the badge. CBC found examples that will make you do a double take.
Like No Dollar, who has an enormous audience, over 13 million monthly listeners, and yet, at least at the time of reporting, no checkmark.
And it gets even stranger when you look at legacy artists. Some famous names weren't verified yet, including Joni Mitchell, Roy Orbison, and Celia Cruz.
Plus classical giants. Richard Wagner and George Friedrich Handel showed up without verification, while Beethoven and Tchaikovsky were already verified.
If you're listening and thinking, wait, how does a composer from centuries ago get verified before another? You're not alone. It highlights what a staggered rollout looks like in real life. Not a clean list, more like a moving wave.
Spotify's stance is basically, if someone doesn't have the badge yet, it doesn't mean they won't. They're continuing the rollout over the next few weeks.
And there's another boundary they're drawing right now. This badge is for music artists, not podcasts.
Which is notable, because AI-generated content isn't just a music problem. Synthetic voices, AI-hosted shows, automated news episodes, podcasting is dealing with that too.
Still, Spotify told CBC News that, for now, they're not planning to roll out a verified by Spotify label for podcasts. Even big shows you'd assume would be first in line, like the Joe Rogan Experience, Smart Less, or Good Hang with Amy Poehler, aren't part of this verification system.
So where does that leave us, as listeners? I think the badge is Spotify acknowledging a reality: discovery is getting weird. The simple act of pressing play now comes with identity questions.
And it's also Spotify trying to protect trust in the platform. Because if users feel like they can't tell what's real, the whole experience starts to fray.
But it's not a perfect solution. The criteria, 10,000 active listeners for 3 months, plus off-platform proof, may be logical, but it can also tilt toward artists who already have resources, teams, and visibility.
It raises a question I keep coming back to. Is verification just about authenticity, or does it quietly become a gatekeeper? And if it becomes a gatekeeper, who gets left outside?
Maybe the best way to think about this first version is as a starting point. A tool that might help, but one we'll have to watch closely, especially as AI music keeps improving and spreading.
Because if the next era of music is going to include both human creativity and machine-generated output, then platforms are going to need more than one symbol. They'll need transparent policies, clearer labeling, appeals processes, and probably a lot more public conversation.
For now, the next time New Music Friday pops up, you might find yourself doing something new, glancing for a little green checkmark before you commit to the song.
And whether you love that idea or hate it, it's a sign of where we are. In 2026, listening isn't just listening anymore. It's also verifying.